When a building goes up, it usually stays up. Designers work hard to ensure their building can withstand the test of time. But not so another type of building.
It did make us think.
That goes up and comes down.
We've got to really come up with our best ideas.
At the speed of light.
Really, really quickly.
Building eye-catching temporary structures is a whole new branch of architecture with its own challenges. So is building them green for the green-themed Olympic Games. While some Olympic buildings have been years in the making, this build will be an intense 3-month grind from start to finish. And its birth will be just as traumatic as a permanent building.
Anyone who wants to work in China realises you're on a bit of a roller coaster. What would you rather be on, a roller coaster or a slow train? I would choose the roller coaster.
In the north of Beijing city sits the Olympic Park. With only 3 months left before the opening of the Olympics, it's game on in the race to completion. Planned for over 8 years, they've designed it as a showcase for energy-efficient and sustainable technologies. Dubbed the Green Games, it's also a race to clean up the air. Most days, the city is shrouded in smog, with air pollution levels that may be 5 times higher than those recommended by the World Health Organization. The most iconic and eye-catching structures within the park are the track and field stadium, nicknamed the Bird's Nest, and the aquatic center, dubbed the Water Cube. Close by, another group of Olympic buildings is just getting started. This strip of land will house the temporary pavilions, whose lives are as fleeting as the Olympics themselves. Each will represent a commercial sponsor and provide entertainment and services to Olympic visitors. Their build will be a near impossible sprint. From start to finish. Designing and building stylish temporary structures takes a different set of skills than permanent buildings.
I go very much from the human perspective first when I design. I think we all recognise before we put pen to paper that actually it's about people first, architectural iconography second. If you can marry the two together, then you've got a magic combination.
Sally Crabb is a creative director of Imagination, the company that will design and build a hospitality lounge for athletes and their families at the Games. It's called the Olympic Rendezvous.
The essence of the idea is to attract both spectators and athletes to one place. It's like offering the athletes a kind of business lounge to take their family when their families are in town while they're competing.
Sponsored by Samsung, the Olympic Rendezvous will also cater for spectators who can drop in to be entertained. Samsung has been the sponsor of the Olympic Rendezvous since the Sydney Olympics in 2000. Since then, there's been Salt Lake City in 2002, Athens in 2004, and the Torino Winter Olympics in 2006. The new benchmark is to do it all again, but make it green. And there's another degree of difficulty from the word go. In previous Olympics, organizers assigned sponsor sites almost a year before the event. But in China, sites were only finalized in December 2007, making the team 4 months behind from the very start.
With any deadline, in any walk of life, it tends to focus the mind somewhat. And with creative minds, that actually is not a bad thing.
Luckily, imagination is not on its own.
We found out that there were many architects specializing in green buildings in China. So we decided to use these specialists and combine them with the Western designers to produce the best pavilion.
Led by Professor Li Dexiang, the Architectural Design and Research Institute at Tsinghua University joins the team. The institute, also known as ADRI, is a leading light in the field of green and sustainable architecture.
Our country, like many other countries, faces challenges such as resource shortages and environmental degradation. We must use green architecture and ecological engineering to face such global challenges.
When planning for a Green Olympics, the government asked ADRI to build a green building on campus, designed to showcase green technology from around the world. Outside, the building features a small wetlands, which contributes to natural water purification, and fiber optic lighting tubes, nicknamed sunflowers, that move with the sun and take light down to the basement. A double-skin facade and precisely positioned louvers make best use of natural air currents. And photovoltaic panels on the side of the building capture and convert the sun's energy into electricity. On the roof, the garden provides a peaceful retreat and valuable heat insulation. In a coming together of East and West, the ADRI and Imagination teams brainstorm a design for the 2008 Green Olympic Rendezvous.
And at this area, walking through this fiber optic forest,
Huang Xianming and Li Jie are specialists in green building.
We realized the way of thinking is very different between our two companies. We mainly focus on engineering, and we start our designs from external to internal factors. In contrast, imagination tends to focus on human feeling.
The brief: to come up with a design in under 4 weeks.
it's like you imagine having one big wall with 20 different sketches on the wall.
The team looks at green from every angle, from natural materials to recycled buildings, to those that make their own energy.
And you're kind of pushing and pulling everything at the same time in order to hope that in the fullness of time, over the next few days, one of these designs will start to surface as a cohesive idea.
One key idea that emerges is a living forest, reflecting China's massive tree planting campaign. The design teams brainstorm nearly a dozen ideas. Each contributes another dimension to their thinking. And by the end of January, the design of the Olympic Rendezvous 2008 has crystallized.
The building's made up of two forms, two curved half ovals, which are placed back to back and not in a straight relationship with each other, but one is at a dynamic angle.
To the west is the building which will house the spectators' exhibition area on the ground floor and the hospitality suite for athletes above. On the opposite side, facing northeast, is an outdoor plaza, complete with entertainment stage and a giant screen for showcasing Olympic moments, where spectators can come to be entertained and to soak up the vibe of the Games. The two spaces are cleverly connected by a sun terrace for the athletes, which backs directly onto the stage. And 2 rows of giant steel trees reference the early forest designs.
In an atmosphere like Beijing, you have the opportunity to open up the architecture and really let it, if you like, sing to the audience to attract their attention.
And the building has shades of green. There will be sun pipes to take light into the building and solar panels that will generate electricity from sunlight. Perhaps the greenest element of all is the building's steel skeleton, which can be recycled after the building is torn down. But as they put the finishing touches to the plans, a site survey threatens to halt construction before it even starts. There appears to be something under the building site. A site survey unearths a weighty problem. Below the building platform, there's a void, and within it, the beginnings of an underground shopping mall. The site is riddled with a maze of pipes and cables, and there's only 3 meters of soil between the roof of the mall and the building platform. Worse still, the outdoor plaza is directly above the roof of the mall, so there are massive weight restrictions. Paul Quain, project manager for Imagination, recalls the moment vividly.
So I was actually at ADRI when the results of the ground survey came in, and they produced this A3 drawing, which was practically all covered in red. And it was only then that it really sunk in that, what is that area? And so now it's a no-build zone. As the impact of that really sank in, it was just silence.
It's crunch time for the design team.
I don't think at that stage I ever considered that we should change the design.
It's back to the drawing board for the architects and engineers at ADRI. The brief: to find a way to redistribute and lessen the weight of the building without changing the design. The Athlete Centre isn't directly above the shopping mall, but they have to make sure that the structure doesn't disturb the underground pipes and cables. But in the plaza, it's a different story, because the roof of the shopping mall lies directly below it.
就是因为这拧了一下，是吧？所有管这都挪不开。对。
这个不好碰。
The ADRI team proposes 2 solutions. Option 1, they can put more pillars in the underground mall to support the weight of the plaza. Or option 2, they can lessen the weight of the plaza by removing some earth from beneath it. It takes the engineers at ADRI a week of 14-hour days to come up with a new solution. Below the Spectator and Athlete Centres, a crisscross of pipes and cables lies just underground. Here, the foundation uprights will be connected to each other by a series of steel beams. These will stabilise the building and redistribute its weight, so the pipes and cables won't be affected. In the outdoor plaza, they've worked out the precise amount of earth they'll need to dig out to meet the weight restrictions. And 2 bridges placed directly above supporting beams in the mall will help take the weight of the plaza.
It's a credit to people's diligence to be able to say to us, about a week later, this is how you need to solve it.
Down at the sponsors strip, 2 weeks behind schedule, it's time to put theory into practice.
We started building as soon as we could, a lot before some of the permissions were granted, understanding that the problems we're going to encounter here with the foundations.
While some digging can be done by machine, the delicate nature of the site means that much needs to be dug by hand. It's down to spades and measuring tapes.
We started excavating. It almost felt like an archaeological dig, trying to expose all of these elements very slowly by digging by hand.
The migrant workers, led by foreman Zhong Jingyan, are from 6 different provinces and rarely get the chance to go home. Many have worked on bigger Olympic projects, but not to such a crazy deadline.
This project is certainly loaded with pressure. We will try to turn pressure into motivation.
Off-site, the steel beams, the very backbone of the building, are being manufactured at speed. Steel is one of the most recycled materials in the world. In the US, steel has been recycled for over 150 years. Recycled steel is cheaper to produce and uses about 1/4 of the energy needed to refine it from iron ore. China's exponential growth has meant that demand for steel has outstripped global supply. Even scrap steel is in high demand here. Nevertheless, 10% of this building will be made from recycled steel, and the entire structure will be recycled after the Games.
It's not a standard structure, not a standard box that most of the other pavilions are.
This means that each steel beam is individual and must be custom made. As each beam comes off the line, it's numbered, so that on site, it's just a matter of assembling. Like a giant set of Lego. 3 a.m., and the factory has just delivered another shipment of steel. So great is the demand and so fast the turnaround that the factory can only supply steel in small batches. This time, it's a delivery of 6 pillars and some beams for the plaza. Access for trucks to the Olympic Green is restricted, which means most materials and equipment must be transported in the dead of night or early morning. Most of the steel boxing is complete in the Athlete Center. Work is now shifting to the plaza, where they've started the delicate mission of installing the pillars. 2 cranes, a 20-ton and a 50-ton, lift each pillar into the correct location. There are 10 different kinds of steel pillar in this design, and they've all been given a unique number at the factory. From the design of the pillar and its number, they can work out its location on the plan.
It's a unique structure, so building it is very complicated. Our builders are very cautious in examining each part.
Working at this frantic pace, inevitably, there are mistakes. This pillar is in the wrong location. Its number doesn't match up with the one on the plan, but no one can find the right pillar to take its place. They discover that's because the factory was supposed to send 8 pillars this morning, but only 6 arrived on site. It means they can't link up all the plaza pillars as planned on today's schedule. Worse still, one pillar is too short for the structure, requiring some hasty alterations.
One column is about 40 centimeters short. The factory was very concerned, but we fixed it. This is no big deal.
But not such an easy fix is a row of pillars facing in the wrong direction. They debate the fastest fix in a schedule that is already tight for time. During the build, the workers receive some heart-rending news. A devastating earthquake has rocked Sichuan province. The tragedy has left over 50,000 dead and over 300,000 injured. Many here are from Sichuan.
I know that we've had quite a lot of workers from Sichuan. It was quite poignant then when we heard about the earthquake down there, and we had a 3-minute silence on site.
Mr. Zhong is from Guangyang City in Sichuan.
So for me personally, I'm quite stressed here working on the project because I can't leave. Every day I watch the devastation back home on TV. It's quite sad. But for the Olympic Games, we just have to pour our heart and soul into our construction site and finish it on time.
Already, the Athlete Center is looking more like an actual building, with the steel floor now down on the upper story.
We've started working more than 20 hours a day ever since the beams and floors of the second floor arrived.
They've begun installing the curved beams piece by piece. It's not a job for the faint-hearted.
Builders spend a lot of time high up, so we put an emphasis on safety. They all have to attach a safety cable.
From a safety point of view, you can't move too fast with the crane in there, taking up the big C sections. It all takes a lot of time to do.
The factory still can't supply sufficient steel to keep up with demand on site, so construction is still 2 weeks behind schedule.
If the factory still has trouble delivering the steel on time, we'll be in serious trouble.
The first of the massive steel trees are hoisted into place. Weighing a hefty 7.5 tons each, it takes the 50-ton crane to lift them. Then it's a matter of holding them in position while they are screwed onto their bases. Inside, fireproofing has begun on the main structure. Next up, the trees get their branches. Weighing 1 ton each, getting them into position for welding takes precious time. It's the end of the first week in June, and 9 weeks out from the Olympics. The steel forest is all but complete, and the last of the curved steel beams are going up in the plaza. They've started to erect scaffolding along both sides of the building, so they can begin painting the trees. Inside, there's been a transformation. The ground floor now has interior walls and a concrete floor. Upstairs, the second floor is beginning to take shape and even has a roof. But it will be more convenient for everyone when there's actual stairs connecting the two levels. Although getting them into place is proving quite a mission. Time is so tight that many trades work simultaneously on site.
There are always some workers here on site 24 hours a day. At peak, the workload is 80 to 90 people, having to work together in an area of only 300 to 400 square meters.
Once the steel structure is complete, it's time to install the glass walls, which will flank 3 sides of the upper level of the pavilion. Because the building is now enclosed by scaffolding, they can't use the crane to lift them into place, so it has to be done by hand. It takes more than 10 men working in close synchronicity to get each pane into its allotted place. Each of these panels weighs a back-breaking half a ton and is a massive 8 meters long. Meanwhile, on the roof, workers face the difficult challenge of balancing speed with safety. On the second floor, the first components of the sun pipes have arrived. The sun pipe is an old idea that is now firmly part of the new green revolution. The concept, used even in ancient times, involves capturing daylight and delivering it to interior spaces with the minimum loss of light intensity. The entrance point for the light is a dome, which captures as much light as possible, while sealing out harmful ultraviolet rays. Then a highly reflective tube carries the light rays through the building and delivers them into the room via a diffuser. This inner tube will connect to the light-gathering dome on the roof. There are 5 sun pipes in total, 3 of which will travel right down to the ground floor. Just as they're catching up to schedule, there's stress-making news from the Olympic authorities.
The Olympic Committee gave us final notice to finish the project by July 7. It makes us very stressed. It's almost 2 weeks earlier than planned completion.
The news means they must revisit how they complete the project.
That means all the major machinery needs to be clear, all the major construction work in terms of the roof, the glazing, the flooring, all has to be complete.
It's a blow for a workforce that is already giving it their all. In a breathtaking 30 years, China has transformed itself from a largely rural-based economy to a dynamic, modern nation with the fastest-growing economy in the world. Half of all the world's buildings go up in China, and China produces around 8% of all the world's goods. It's become the world's factory. But progress has come at a price. As millions move off the land and into the cities, China's energy needs have risen in parallel. Emissions from coal-fired power stations, motor vehicles and industry have combined to give China another title. It has now surpassed the United States as the single greatest emitter of greenhouse gases on the planet. Dr. Zhang Rongshu is a solar panel manufacturer and advisor to the Chinese government on green technology.
So if we do not do something about our environment, if we do not do something about our resource, okay, then the country is not going to be sustainable.
While the average Chinese citizen has a carbon footprint roughly 1/4 that of someone in the US, it's the scale of the problem that is staggering. 1.3 billion people are in a big hurry to catch up with those in the developed world. And as they do, China's pollution woes become a problem for the entire planet.
A majority of the Chinese population are just at the time when they had the money to enjoy a slightly better quality of life. If you are a small family, you want to have a nice house and nice car, we cannot just take away that.
The top-down approach, where government takes the lead in green thinking, is different from the experience of Western nations.
The awareness of environmental protection and energy efficiency in China is still not as widespread as in the West. The way the message is spread in China is from top to bottom. In contrast, in the West, the notion of energy efficiency and environmental protection was promoted from the bottom to the top.
In its 11th five-year plan, put out in 2005, the Chinese government aims to reduce energy consumption by 20% and pollution by 10%, and all by 2010.
The governments at all levels realize, this is a very important issue. If China cannot win this battle, so China's economy will not be sustainable.
Just under 80 kilometers north of Beijing, a new landmark signals this move towards a greener future in China. The Guanting Wind Power Station was built late last year. Its 33 wind turbines have a capacity to produce 50,000 kilowatts of electricity. It's scheduled to come on stream to coincide with the Games, and an estimated 20% of all Olympic venues will be powered by these turbines. The 2005 legislation aims that by 2020, China will have doubled the amount of energy it gets from renewable sources.
Once the Chinese government determined to do something, they will do it well. I believe by 2020, China's economy will continue to grow, and our environmental issue will be much more improved than today. Chinese sky will start to return to blue.
On the Olympic Rendezvous building site, they're working round the clock to complete the outside structure by the new deadline of July 7, just 2 weeks away. There's a mad mix of tradesmen on site from 11 different subcontracting companies.
It is very difficult with all the different trades all working here at once. So you've got metal workers here still welding, we're still excavating in certain areas. And in other areas of the site, we're actually finished painting and plastering.
It's become quite compressed, and a lot of people working on top of each other, which is never ideal.
The fiberglass capping to cover the join between roof and walls has arrived from the factory. Like the steel beams, every part has had to be custom made. Some sections, especially those on the corners, aren't fitting snugly into their allotted place. The workforce is now at a peak of 150 workers, and the workload is unrelenting. The traditional lunchtime nap helps many survive the punishing hours.
Normally, most people finish at midnight or 2 a.m. every day. Everyone is assigned a fixed workload that has to be finished in a limited time. If the work that day falls behind schedule, we will put in more hours to get the job finished. That is why we need a great deal of labor, about 150 men every day.
Once a day, the Imagination team does a walk round to check on progress.
So do you want to have a look at the graphics outside?
I think that the left-hand graphic should be going on down here. So that's the one with the final mat on the right.
But around in the plaza, there's chaos. Workers from BOCOG, the Beijing Olympic Authority, have come to provide water, power, and internet services to the pavilion.
It's just very late in the process to actually be excavating around site, and it's causing a lot of mess and disruption. That's the route they're doing then, they're going to dig through there.
With a crisscross of white painted lines close to the pavilion,
Well, I don't know, why they mark this all out?
it's hard to predict just where the driver intends to dig the main channel.
At the moment, it's getting perilously close to the corner of our...
Just talking to the guys.
The digger edges ever closer to the roof of the underground shopping mall.
We don't want any of that getting anywhere near our foundation.
I know, and that's exactly where he's digging.
Investigations conclude that while the digger is close, he's not actually going to disturb the delicate foundations.
So they're above any pipe work. You remember the pipes that are down there, they're above that.
We're working with many government agencies, each of them all pulling in the right direction, but not necessarily pulling together.
But it is a bit messy out there.
Yeah, but it's the same for other sponsors.
Yeah.
We don't really have a choice.
The vents go into the ceiling for the low-energy air conditioning system. Lighting designer Tanya Burns has flown over from London to oversee the installation of the lighting cables. The blueprints for the ducting and wiring seem to be a work in progress.
So normally one will get drawings and blueprints on where the plant is going, and it stays where it says it's going, normally.
Some of the lighting cables need to be rerouted because the space has been taken by the air conditioning ducts.
And it really is a matter of, can it go here? No. Can it go here? Yes, okay. Well, can that one go the same place on the other side? No. Okay. And so it's actually quite a convoluted process, but we're getting there.
Up above them, another team of workers installs the photovoltaic panels on the roof. Photovoltaic, or PV panels, work by harnessing sunlight and converting it directly into electricity. Each panel is made up of many individual solar cells. Each cell consists of a thin silicon wafer that converts sunlight into electricity. When particles of sunlight, known as photons, hit the silicon, they generate small electrical charges which flow along metal contacts to make electricity. Each panel connects to an inverter which converts low voltage direct current electricity into high voltage alternating current, which feeds directly into the building. Over its 25-year life, a single PV panel generates 6,500 kilowatt hours of energy and saves 7.5 tons of carbon dioxide from being emitted into the atmosphere. The production of PV panels worldwide has been doubling every 2 years since 2002. It's the world's fastest growing energy technology. These 60 panels are made by Chinese company Suntech. Based in Wuxi, in just 6 years, Suntech has gone from a fledgling factory of 20 to a massive multinational employing over 8,000 people. It's one of the largest producers of PV panels in the world. Although still expensive compared to fossil fuels, solar energy has many green advantages. It's quiet, produces no toxic emissions or greenhouse gases, and emits no hazardous waste.
So this is going to be a giant industry, bigger than oil industry.
Suntech's founder, scientist and entrepreneur, Dr. Zhongrong Shi, has no doubt that photovoltaics is the energy of the future.
For any power generation technology, like gas or coal, and we need to build a generator. We need to use steel to build a generator, right? Then we need to burn fuel, such as coal or gas or oil, to generate electricity. But if you look at solar, what the material to use to build this generator, which is basically sand, silicon, right? So which is the second most abundant element on the Earth's crust. And what is the fuel? Fuel is sunshine, which is free.
A self-made billionaire, Dr. Shi sees his role as much more than CEO of a successful enterprise.
I believe entrepreneurs sometimes can do things politicians cannot. Give an example, Bill Gates, right? He promoted the internet very successfully, and he changed our life. Okay, he changed the way we work, we live. If we make solar successful, we will change people's life.
At last, the scaffolding is coming down.
The day that we actually dropped the scaffolding, the structure was exposed for the first time. First impression, you just smile, and then watching everybody else that was coming down, that was the first thing they were doing. It's like, wow.
Suddenly to see all of that come down, you suddenly realise, oh, right, okay, this probably is going to work as a designed building in this space. And it's just a huge lift.
But on the opposite side of the pavilion, it's a very different story. The BOCOG workers are making painfully slow progress, and no one knows just when the power, water, and internet will be connected. And another ruling from the authorities threatens to disrupt things even further.
We've heard on the 1st of July that they may be reducing the amount of trucks that can come onto site. So each pavilion can bring 1 or 2, which isn't particularly ideal when we need several to be able to finish by the 8th.
It's July 1st, and less than 1 week to the deadline to finish the main structure. The lighting and stage are almost complete in the plaza. Upstairs in the Athlete Centre, coloured vinyls now adorn the glass walls.
What we're all enjoying is the fact that for every day, more and more of this design gets unveiled, that we all realise that actually we probably have got it right.
Even the steel trees look better, against the backdrop of the neighbouring pavilion, which now has grown a coat of grass.
Our neighbours have gone for a very minimalist style. Their experiences are inside their buildings. What we've done is turned our building inside out and have it all out onto the street, so it becomes a piece of street theatre.
Next day, the full impact of the July 1st truck restrictions hit home when they're unable to get a concrete truck on site.
The issue was that we wanted to pour all of the concrete last night on the upper deck for the athletes' terrace. And actually what happened during the course of the night, some of the regulations had changed about the size of the lorry loads that you could bring in on site.
We had to actually just get bags of concrete and cement in vans and cars and just make sure that the guys just done it by hand overnight.
Just when they've nearly hit the wall and the schedule looks more and more impossible, there's news from the authorities on the July 7 deadline.
Well, BOCOG had set a date of July the 8th for a lockdown on site, but they themselves are struggling to get the final completion done on all their works. So this has meant that they've extended that deadline to the 20th, which is very helpful, and certainly all the sponsors are very grateful for that.
With just over 1 month to go, the entire city is sprucing up for the green-themed games. At last, the services are all in and the trenches are gone. But the scaffolding is back up so they can finish the outside painting and clean up the mess.
It's a lovely feeling when we start to book the cleaners to start clearing all the building work out, and all the technicians arrive, because you know you're on the home straight.
Now that they have electricity, lighting designer Tanya Burns can start pointing the lights.
It's always nice to actually point the first light, and it feels like you're sort of starting something, and it's a bit more, you can see the end, and it's good, it just makes you feel good. I think that's okay. Might be a bit too much. It has its chance to sing in the evening and at night. So actually, not only did we just want to do the traditional lighting of theatre pieces, of the concerts that are going to be on the stage, but actually let the building have its moment as well.
But this evening, it's the Beijing summer rain, which most definitely is setting the mood.
Just makes it really difficult, especially with the lighting and the steel workers, so they have to stop, all the exterior work has to stop, painting and everything, so it's really, it really is pushing us back.
It's going to be another long night.
Wish I had my umbrella. Sorry.
1 month later, it's day one of the Beijing Olympics 2008. And it's into the starting blocks for the staff at the Olympic rendezvous. The first visitors of the day are from 2 schools for the children of migrant workers. Some of their parents worked on the bird's nest and water cube.
To see people coming in, enjoying themselves and really using the facility in the way that we had intended.
Yeah.
And it's just a proper payoff now for all of the kind of team's work. We've got lots of colour on the pavilion, and that seems to really work, and it seems to have resonated with people. All of these stained glass windows really working well in this environment where you've got, you know, hot blazing sunshine outside, and it really seems to affect the interior space very positively, and it's a bright and nice place to be.
The sun pipes have taken pride of place on the upper deck. And green messages are an integral part of the visitor experience. This sun pipe is transmitting light to mini PV panels that charge the mobile phone beneath. So even though the PV panels on the roof aren't visible to the visitors, the display provides food for green thought.
We've got recycled stories that are hidden throughout the pavilion that are just little text messages, just written on the materials themselves. They're not really overtly lecturing everybody about green issues, but actually just there.
Even the bar is made from recycled plastic bottle tops.
When you sit down at the bar, put your drink down, and go, oh, what's that? Oh, right, there's just a piece of information about what the bar is made of, and it's just a nice little story.
Down below, the plaza is humming. As the day heats up, so do the crowds. As evening falls, the pavilion's night attire blends in well with its iconic neighbours. Just like the Olympics themselves, this building is a fleeting moment in time, destined to come down after the end of the Paralympics, just 6 weeks away. Leaving behind a patch of grass and a stack of materials for recycling.
You have this moment in time where you share things, you share a show or a piece of architecture or whatever. Knowing that only a certain number of people have stood where you've stood, enjoying the same things that you're enjoying. And then it's gone, and everything else beyond that is stories or photographs. So to see the building come down at the end will just be a full stop. It would be absolutely delightful to think that this could stay as part of the Olympic Green, but I think that, you know, these are temporary buildings. They're built as temporary buildings.
This building is short-lived, but the ideas that inspired it will live on, as Beijing strives for cleaner skies and a greener future.